more hits! Reloading! Let's hurry!
Hello guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another Division 2 build video. So in today's video, we're going to be breaking down 3 high damage solo DPS builds for Year 6 Season 3, but these builds should also still be viable for the next season as well. So these 3 builds are designed to make you feel super powerful, and we achieve this by using some of the best weapons, gear sets, and playstyles for each setup. So guys, before we get started, just a real quick message from today's sponsor. Have you been struggling to get any of the Raid or Dark Zone exclusive items? Perhaps you don't have many friends or a clan and it's just been an absolute struggle finding a good raid group? Well then, Diving's got you covered. You can get items such as the Eagle Bearer, Ouroboros, Regulus, complete full build setups, and much more. Dwing also offers self-play, which means if you're worried about sharing your login info, you have the option to play on your account while you're getting carried. Dwing has been operating for several years, so they are legitimate and have a lot of clients' reviews as well as a variety of different payment methods. So if you're interested, use the code SWORDGAMING for 15% off. This first setup harnesses the power of the Ridgeway's Pride exotic chest piece, so this is a bleed build that hits extremely hard. However, it does lack a lot of survivability, and since you'll need to be within close to mid-range to see good results, it makes it more suitable for open world farming. So I wouldn't recommend running legendary or master difficulty with this setup because again, it does lack a great deal of survivability, even though Ridgeway's Pride does grant some armor regeneration. But the armor regeneration that you get from the Ridgeway Pride vest isn't really consistent enough to hold up in legendary strongholds or the summit for that matter. Nevertheless, it's still a solid setup for open world heroic farming because of the insane damage it puts out. Plus, it's different. You know, most people run Striker, which is basically meta, but Striker does get boring at times. So this is just a different but fun build to play with. So for the primary weapon, I'm currently using the AKM, well, the black market AKM, but you have a ton of options here. You can go with the Lexington if you have, or the Carbine 7, but you won't see as much damage as the AKM though. The AKM needs more love, if I'm being honest. It's just so underrated, which is sad because it's super powerful. But for the talent, I'm running Sadis for the 30% amplified weapon damage to bleeding enemies. And amplified weapon damage is multiplicative, unlike regular increased weapon damage, so you're getting more bang for your buck, so to speak, right? And for the secondary weapon, you can use whatever you want here, it really doesn't matter. Now for the mask, a Fenris Group AB mask with armor, critical hit chance and damage, and a critical hit damage mod. And I get an extra 10% assault rifle damage for the one-piece brand set bonus, which is basically equivalent to 10% increased weapon damage, but for ARs. And for the vest, the Ridgeway's Pride exotic chest piece. If anyone doesn't have this chest piece, it's not that hard to get, and you can actually get the parts to craft it from the summit, but I'll show you a good alternative and I'll explain how it works in case anyone's new in just a second. But for the holster, a Picaro's holster with armor and critical hit damage. Then for the knee pads, a Walker Harris piece rolled with armor and crits, and I get a 5% weapon damage bonus for having one piece, and for the gloves, Grupo with armor and crits, and a 13% critical hit damage bonus from the Grupo set. Then for the backpack, a Seska bag with weapon damage and crits, and a critical hit damage mod. So you want to have all crits for this setup, okay? And for the talent, I went with Wicked. And with Wicked, you're basically getting an 18% increased weapon damage for 20 seconds. However, in order for it to activate, you'll need to apply a status effect to a target. And this is where the Ridgeway's Pride vest plays its role. So with the Bleeding Edge talent, shooting an enemy within 15 meters will apply the bleed status effect to them. Also, you will get 3 to 48% armor repair per second for every enemy that is bleeding within 15 meters of you. And if you have a look at the bottom, you can see the percentages of the repair strength that you get per bleeding enemy. So this is why I chose to go with the Bleed Stinger Hive. It's just a fast way to apply that bleed to multiple targets. Now, if you don't have the Ridgeway's Pride Vest, you also have the option of using Trauma. So Trauma is very similar because it will apply bleed to an enemy by shooting them in the chest. But the downside to this is the 30-second cooldown. However, with Trauma, you can apply bleed at any distance. So if you would like to go with Trauma, then what you can do to kind of counter that 30-second cooldown in a way is to run the Gunner specialization and equip the Banshee Pulse. That way you have 2 means for activating the Wicked talent, right? Well, actually 3, because Trauma also applies blind to enemies if you land a headshot. And I'm pretty sure blind counts as a status effect, but correct me if I'm wrong though. Now for the stats, 53% critical hit chance and 191% critical hit damage on the AKM. So that's a lot of critical hit damage. And since I'm using the Firewall specialization, I get the tactical grip attachment. So this is the underbarrel rail that gives you an extra 15% critical hit damage. Also, another benefit of having Firewall is that you get the option to equip the Striker Shield variant. And with the Striker variant, you're going to be getting a small damage boost based on the number of enemies in front of your shield, which you can see right here. Mine is at 13% because I have damage bonus mods, so I get an extra 6%. Now, for the global modifiers, I'm using Overdrive for the active, which instantly maxes out your rogue momentum meter while giving you a 30% weapon and skill damage increase, as well as rate of fire increase, and unlimited ammo for a short period of time. And for the passive modifiers, critical momentum, so critical hits have a 40% chance to grant 1% momentum. Then critical recovery, which will restore about 0.5% of your max armor when landing crits. And last but not least, fortified shield, which helps to increase the ballistic shield's base health by 100%. Okay guys, this next setup is a powerful 4-piece striker build with the Catharsis mask. The Catharsis mask actually got buffed a while back, so you'll be getting a bit more increased weapon damage from its talent. Also, I'm running both the striker vest and backpack for the increased weapon damage, so we'll be using the full power of striker with this setup. Using striker with both the vest and backpack is a powerhouse, especially when combined with the Strega exotic assault rifle, which is the primary weapon that I'm currently using with this setup. However, the St. Elmo's engine is another great alternative. But with the Strega assault rifle, you get the unnerved talent, which basically amplifies your weapon damage after you've applied a mark to them. And by them, I mean NPCs or any other enemy targets. So eliminating an enemy will apply a mark on every enemy within 20 meters, and multiple marks can be applied to the same enemy, maxing out at 5 marks. Now all marks will last for 10 seconds after the last one's been applied. But get this, you will deal out 15% amplified damage per mark to marked enemies. So this is a better option as opposed to using the St. Elmo's engine, well, in my opinion at least. But if you would much rather get the shock rounds from the Elmo for crowd controlling NPCs, then go for it. And for the secondary weapon, I'm using the Rock and Roll, which is the named ACS-12 shotgun. This is just going to make it so much easier building striker stacks, especially since I'm running the striker vest. There's another named variant called the Lefty, so this is another named ACS-12, but ideally, you're better off using the Rock and Roll if you have one. It's better because it comes with the talent perfectly extra, so you get a 50% increased mag capacity. And that's only going to help build stacks a lot faster. This gun may be tricky to get though, but I believe you can farm it either from the Dark Zone or from Conflict and DZ caches. Now for the mask, the Catharsis mask with armor, incoming repairs, armor regen, and a critical hit chance mod. I'll explain how this mask works in just a moment for anyone who's new, but for the vest, a striker vest rolled with armor, critical hit chance, and another critical hit chance mod. Then for the holster, a Fenris Group AB holster for the 10% increased assault rifle damage you get from the 1-piece bonus, rolled with armor and crits. Then for the knee pads, striker knee pads with armor and critical hit chance. And for the gloves, striker gloves rolled with armor and critical hit damage. Then for the backpack, the final piece of striker rolled with armor, critical hit damage, and a critical hit chance mod. So you want to go with all crits, right? And for the stats, 51% critical hit chance and 86% critical hit damage. Don't worry too much about the critical hit damage because with this setup, there's so much raw weapon damage being stacked, so having a high amount of critical hit damage would be extremely overpowered. Just try and get your critical hit chance to 50% or higher if you can. That way you're at least landing those crits. Now, just real quick, for anyone who's new, the Catharsis mask basically works by building stacks. So as you're taking damage, you're building stacks. And for each stack, you'll be getting 1.5% increased weapon damage. And the max number of stacks you can reach is 30. However, once you take damage after reaching max stacks, not only will your progress reset, but two things will happen. For one, this will trigger the release of a healing cloud that will restore 5% of your max armor to you or any allies within the cloud for a duration of 10 seconds, while simultaneously removing any status effect that's been applied to you. So whether you have, a bleed or a burn status effect on you, it will instantly get removed. So this is a very viable piece, but a good alternative to the Catharsis mask would be the Coyote mask. A little less survivability, but more damage. Now, as many of you guys already know, gear set chest and backpacks, similar to brand sets, come with talents. So with Striker, for example, you get a 15% weapon handling and rate of fire bonus, as well as the 4-piece Striker's Gamble talent. And the Striker's Gamble talent is amazing. So you're basically building stacks just by shooting a target, and you get 0.65% weapon damage for each stack, and max stacks are at 100, so you'll be at 65% weapon damage at full stacks. But since I have the Striker vest, stacks get doubled to 200. Thanks to this talent, press the advantage. And for the backpack, the amount of increased weapon damage you get per stack goes up from 0.65% to 0.90%. So that's a huge increase in weapon damage if you factor that in with the Striker vest. Now for the global modifiers, I'm running Overdrive for the active, and for the passives, Critical Momentum, Critical Recovery, and Overclocked. I decided to run Overclocked since I'm running the decoy with this setup. But with Overclocked, this is kind of like crowd control, because when your decoy gets destroyed or expires, it will blind up to 2 targets within 40 meters, which will grant you 5% bonus momentum for each target. So this next setup is a high damage LMG build with the Ninjabike backpack. The Ninjabike backpack is super viable, as many of you guys already know, especially for hybrid builds. So thanks to the Ninjabike messenger bag, I'm able to squeeze in some well-needed extra stat bonuses, like LMG damage, damage to armor, and things like that. Now this build can be played at any range, but mid to long range is ideal, especially if you decide to use the Pestilence with this setup. The Pestilence absolutely wrecks with this setup, and its talent basically applies damage over time with a debuff, dealing 100% weapon damage over the span of 10 seconds. But at the moment, I'm currently using the Black Market RPK, which is another slightly underrated weapon that hits super hard. But honestly, if your expertise isn't very high, you're better off using the Pestilence because it has a higher RPM and applies a significant amount of damage over time. You can be at a safe distance and still shred NPCs, so it makes farming out in the open world on Heroic a whole lot easier. So for the primary weapon, I'm using the Black Market RPK with the talent Strained. Strained is a decent talent and a nice way to add more critical hit damage. So with Strained, you're getting 10% critical hit damage for every half a second you're firing. This stacks up to 5 times, so that's about an added 50% critical hit damage at full stacks. This is nice because my base critical hit damage with this setup is at 125%, so that 50% I'm getting from the Strain talent helps out a lot. But for the gear pieces, I'm running 2-piece Lengmo, both rolled with armor and crits, and since I have the Ninjabike bag, I get the 3-piece 30% LMG damage bonus. And for anyone new, this backpack basically serves as the 3rd Lengmo piece, so again, I get that 30% LMG damage bonus. And it also serves as my 2nd piece of Walker Harris, so I get the 2-piece bonus, so 5% weapon damage and damage to armor, as well as the 2-piece bonus for the Heartbreaker knee pads, so 15% AR and LMG damage, right, with armor and critical hit chance. And for the gloves, the named contractor gloves for the damage to armor attribute, and I get both 10% LMG damage and 15% weapon handling. So the Ninjabike bag can help you unlock bonuses from multiple brand or gear sets simultaneously. And for the global modifiers, Overdrive for the active, then Critical Momentum, Critical Recovery, and Overclocked for the passives. So yeah, that will do it for today's video, guys. This is Prajna, thank you so much for watching, and let me know what you guys think of these setups in the comment section. but feel free to roll weapon damage instead of armor on any of the pieces if that's more of your preference. So you can also just see these builds as a template for you to create something similar that will perhaps be more tailored to your playstyle, right? But anyway, guys, don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video. And to my channel members, especially the day one members, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Your support has not gone unnoticed. Stay tuned for more exclusive content for this next season. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and see you in the next video. Peace out.